when the Penguins won the Cup in '92 in Chicago, they kept announcing over and over again, "Please do not come to the airport.
Yeah.
Please do not come to the airport." And then, as they're interviewing players after the game, Bob Erie comes on. He's being interviewed by Mike Lang or someone, and Erie looks into the camera and he says, "God damn it, I better see everybody at the airport in 2 hours." Like, oh, God. Attaboy, Bobby. Oh.
The Donut Bag is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Your data is your business. Protect it with ExpressVPN. For 3 extra months free with a 1-year package, go to the link listed in my Twitter profile. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Donut Bag. This episode, I welcome back Josh Yohe from The Athletic, and we are talking Penguins playoffs. It is Tuesday morning when we talked, right after the heartbreaking loss in Game 5 to the Islanders. Oh boy, it was in double overtime. I don't know if they're going to recover. I don't know if we're going to recover. That was just, there was a debate on Chris Carter's podcast, Locked On Steelers, about what is the best playoffs. Is it, hockey or baseball or football or basketball or whatever? And I think for what you get in terms of the amount of drama, and that it's every other day, basically, I think nothing beats the NHL playoffs. It is so full of drama, and it is so draining. I remember when it was, 2016 and 2017, when it was basically 2 months of every other day your team is playing, and it is just so draining. It's like Josh says in this talk. It's draining on the players. It's draining on everybody. Draining on the fans. So, but it is, when your team wins, it's such a wonderful thing. But when your team loses, it is heartbreaking. So that is what we're going through right now. Anyway, here is my talk with Josh Yohe about the Penguins. Donut Bag starts right now. All right, let's talk about it. Such a heartbreaking loss. With me to talk about it is Josh Yohe from The Athletic. How are you, sir?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
Not
so great.
Well, if you ask my wife, I was really cranky and she wasn't exactly sure why. So I have to get her flowers or something like that. I was not happy this morning, but it's 10:30 in the morning, and I saw you put out that story at like 2 a.m. So, how are you? are you on coffee right now?
No, not really. I don't sleep much as it is, actually.
Okay.
So I have a Fitbit that keeps track of my sleeping patterns, and the data that I have uncovered is pretty disturbing regarding my lack of sleep. So I don't really require that much, or maybe I do require that much sleep, and I just routinely choose to not go through with it. But nonetheless, I'm okay. In my line of work, you get a certain adrenaline when you're covering playoff games. Like, it's exciting to be there and to be a part of it. And, people want to read your articles a little more than usual when it's the playoffs, stuff like that. So, yeah, you kind of grind through. And unfortunately for the home team, the playoffs might be over pretty soon. So there might not be too much energy left to be had.
I'm thinking back to when they went on those Stanley Cup runs and how draining it is for fans, and I'm sure people that write for the team and stuff like that and cover it. I mean, every other day it's like an intense thing, and sometimes they go to overtime, and it's like that for basically 2 months. And it is wonderful when your team wins, and it's awesome, but it's also draining as heck.
Oh, no, of course it is. And, trust me, it's like that for the players, for the coaches, for the fans, for the media. There is truly nothing like playoff hockey. I believe that wholeheartedly. It's the most exciting thing there is. And I have sense, it's funny with the Penguins fans, like they're more spoiled than most because they've won all these cups over the years.
Oh, yeah.
However, I have a theory, and it pertains to players and to fans. I think when you've never won the cup, it doesn't bother you as much when you lose because you don't know what it feels like. But when you've felt it, both as a player or as a fan, and you feel just how magical it is, it's like a drug, and you always want to get back to that high again. And when you don't do it, it just crushes you. So every playoff loss crushes Penguins fans a little more, even though most fans are incredibly envious of them. So it's just kind of an interesting phenomenon, I think.
We're at a real interesting point in Penguins history because basically we're just waiting for the end. We're waiting for the end of this era. It's been an amazing era that's been going on for what, 16, 17 years now. And it's absolutely amazing that, these stars have been able to stay together, but it's going to end and we don't know when. And it just felt like there was an impending sense of doom last night. That's how it felt. It's like it was like a predetermined thing. It's like, oh God, when's this going to end? When are we going to lose this game?
Yeah, I know what you mean. And because you're a reasonable and a good man, I'm sure you've seen Shawshank Redemption. And I am reminded in Shawshank when, Andy said, Red, hope is the best of things. And when you're a Penguin fan right now, it's hard to muster any hope because Crosby is still great, but he's not what he was. And Malkin, even on a bigger scale, is still great, but he's definitely not what he was. And you just know that. And I actually wrote in my article last night, listen, Jarry lost the game. Make no mistake. Anyone who blames anyone other than Jarry wasn't watching. But when's the last time Sidney Crosby just took over a playoff game? When's the last time Evgeny Malkin took over a playoff game? I don't know if they can anymore. And that's no knock on them. That's the way it works. Mario and Gretzky didn't take over playoff games when they were in their 30s either. But it's tough to watch for Penguins fans because the end is coming at some point, and I think people hold on the way they do because you just want to finish it off with one more, the perfect storybook ending. And it could happen. It could happen this year. It could happen next year, but you probably wouldn't bet on it happening at this point, and everybody kind of knows it.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of hope, I just put out something a few minutes ago. It said, well, they were down in many of these playoff series, many of these playoff series where they ended up winning the cup. They were down to the Devils in the 91 playoffs. They were down 2-0 to the Bruins in those playoffs. Recently they were down to Detroit in the one they ended up winning. They were down to Tampa Bay in 2016, 3-2, and they ended up winning that series. And I was quickly told by Twitter and Mark Madden that this isn't happening. So.
Well, it could happen, but I would suggest, 2016 was a long time ago now. Crosby and Malkin were 5 years younger, and that can't be ignored. If you're looking for hope in this series, the fact of the matter is, and this is undeniable, the Penguins have been the better team in 4 of the 5 games. They absolutely have been. There's no. What they did to the Islanders last night, please spare me that Barry Trotz is the greatest coach ever talk. Barry Trotz's system is giving up 45 shots a game. They're not having trouble with Barry Trotz's system. This is just one goaltender is a lot better than the other in all of these games that the Islanders are winning. So if you're looking for hope, sure, Penguins history tells us if they win Game 6, they probably will win Game 7. My concern for the Penguins, though, let me tell you something. I have been to Long Island many times. They are walking into the snake pit tomorrow night at the Coliseum. The atmosphere in that place, I'm telling you, it's different than other buildings. It's an old school, legitimate home ice advantage. The storm they are going to have to withstand in the first 10 minutes is going to be substantial. And I just don't know if their goaltender has the guts or the mental wherewithal right now to handle it. That's my big concern for the Penguins.
I can't imagine what Jarry is going through and what he is going to experience. Like you said on Wednesday, it is going to be brutal. You mentioned in your article about his immaturity, and I just can't believe that he makes those mistakes and he has displayed this immaturity. He was drafted in 2013. He's 26. It's not like he's a rookie. It's not like he's a baby. How is he still doing these things?
No, I know. And, I hate being so hard on Tristan. He's a really nice kid. But I think the key word there is kid. There is kind of an immature quality to him, even when you talk with him. Like, listen to his post-game interviews. Like, I don't know there's not really a lot going on upstairs sometimes with him, I don't think. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's like you're talking with Jeff Spicoli sometimes. Like, if you didn't know Tristan was a hockey player, you'd think he was like on the beach in LA all day. And I don't mean that to knock him. That's just his personality. He's almost too laid back. He's always been that way. There are people in the organization that he drives absolutely crazy because of that. Now, maybe that can be a good thing. I've always said he's the type who, his personality shouldn't really let him get that rattled. So maybe he bounces back. The thing with him, though, he's looked tight all series to me. He looked so nervous in game one, and he played horribly. And to his credit, he bounced back nicely in game two. But, it's hard to like his body language. Somebody asked me at the end of the third period who I thought was going to win in the press box. I said, well, the Penguins have been the better team all night, but Jarry looks scared to death right now. Like, his body language was terrible. So that's a concern for me. Like I said, he's a nice kid. I like him. I think he's a talented goaltender, but it's just hard to have a whole lot of confidence that he's going to walk into the Coliseum and stone the Islanders in front of that crowd tomorrow night when the Islanders can clearly smell blood and they're clearly a better team in that building. Man, it's going to be quite a monumental task. And if I were a betting man, I would not be betting on the Penguins tomorrow night.
Is he playing for his career? I mean, I'm sure he's going to stay with the team, but if you're, running the Penguins, you can't be happy with what's going on, and there's going to be changes. Is he playing for his chance of being a starting goalie again in the NHL?
Well, I don't know if I'll go that far, but I will say if he plays poorly tomorrow night and they lose, I am not so sure that he is the Penguins goaltender in October. I'm really not.
Yeah.
Brian Burke and Ron Hextall didn't give him that contract. They didn't draft him. They don't feel any sense of loyalty to him, nor should they. They're still in the process of kind of observing what they have and making the appropriate decisions. And here's the thing. If they determine, okay, we still have Crosby for, 3 or 4 more years or whatever it may be, and we want to win another cup while he's here, the one thing that derails that completely is bad goaltending, if you're not sure of your goaltending. So why would they want to keep Tristan Jarry if he shows absolutely no evidence that he's capable of winning even a playoff series? That's the problem. Now, the Penguins might have other needs. We know they want to get bigger and tougher, and they probably should want to do those things. But goaltending trumps everything else. If you don't have your goaltender, what do you have? And goaltending has been a huge issue for the Penguins ever since Marc-Andre Fleury left, which, of course, coincided with Matt Murray's bizarre descent into mediocrity, which I don't really think anybody saw coming. So goaltending suddenly becomes the number one issue for the Penguins moving forward. And if he craps the bed tomorrow night, and I'm not so sure that he won't, man, I could see some major changes, including a Tristan Jarry trade coming this summer.
Yeah, I wonder if Ron Hextall gets involved in that, or if he just leaves it alone. I mean, you have a Hall of Fame goalie there. I wonder if there's anything he can say at this point, but still, I wonder how involved he's been with the goaltending, with the goaltenders, since he's come to the Penguins.
I would guess not very much. Most general managers kind of stay out of that kind of stuff. And from what I've heard about Hextall, he's very hands-off. He literally likes to just kind of sit in his office and do his work. And he's a big believer that the locker room is the locker room and not really his place. Jim Rutherford was the same way, by the way. I covered all of Jim Rutherford's 7 seasons in Pittsburgh. And I literally saw him in the locker room one time in 7 years. And I'll tell you when it was. It was, you'll remember the game quite well. When Marc-Andre Fleury shut out the Capitals in Game 7 in 2017, when a couple of months earlier, Rutherford said, I'll trade you if that's what you want. And Fleury said, no, I want to stay here and try to win one more cup, even if I'm not the guy. and Murray gets hurt. Fleury plays. Fleury blanks the Caps in Game 7. Jim Rutherford bowls past everybody in the locker room and gives Fleury a bear hug after Game 7.
Aww.
Only time I ever saw him in the locker room. So general managers, they usually just kind of keep their distance. But Burke and Hextall can't be happy this morning after what they've watched from him in this series. There's no way.
Yeah, it's just scary to think, even if this may or may not be the end of an era, but I think for sure we're going to see changes to this team. What do they need? Do you think they'll be bigger and heavier and tougher?
Yeah, I do. I mean, obviously the goaltending is the biggest issue. I like their blue line a lot. I think it's pretty good. If I had to guess, and this is just a guess, I suspect they might try to ship Marcus Pettersson out and bring in somebody who actually has muscles in their body. Yeah. Marcus is, they're just watching him get thrown around this entire series. I know they don't like it. I think they'd probably like to make a change there, but the blue line is good. If you can bring back CC, great. He's been a wonderful addition. Marino had a sophomore slump, but he's a good player. Really good last night. Letang and Dumoulin, I still think they have a couple of really good years left. I do. So Matheson has been kind of a revelation. He's a good player. So the blue line's fine, but I think you're going to see them get a lot bigger up front. And, I wouldn't be shocked if you see a fairly big name get dealt. It's not going to be Crosby or Malkin or Letang, I don't think. But could a Jake Gensel or a Brian Rust get traded in a quote-unquote hockey trade? Wouldn't shock me. As great of a player as Gensel is, he has been invisible in this series. They're just physically beating him up. He just doesn't have the size to deal with the Islanders. It's very clear, and it's a problem. And Rust isn't a big guy either, as great as he always is in the playoffs, and he was good last night. I just feel like Burke and Hextall are watching this. They're saying, man, we've got all these little forwards around Crosby and Malkin, and they're just getting smothered. We got to do something here. So I think some really significant changes could be coming this summer.
What about Jason Zucker? I mean, to me, it just seems like it hasn't worked for him from day one, since the day he came to the Penguins. My goodness. The talent's there, but dude, shoot the damn puck.
He won't be back next season, I don't believe. In all seriousness, I would think the Penguins might offer Ronnie Francis and the Seattle Kraken a nice draft pick just to take Zucker's salary off of their hands. I legitimately believe that. He has been a monumental disappointment. And, he works hard. It's not like he's dogging it out there like Derek Brassard was. Derek Brassard was literally whining behind the scenes that he wasn't getting more ice time. Ugh. Dude, you're a center and you play with Crosby and Malkin. What exactly were you expecting? Zucker's not like that at all. Great guy in the locker room, great guy in the community, works his butt off every game. I just don't think he's as talented as we thought he was. He scored a nice goal in Game 3, but in general, how many times are you wowed by anything he does on the ice? He's just kind of a guy. And to have a guy making $5.5 million a year, no, it's terrible. And he has zero chemistry with Malkin. I can't believe they're leaving him on that line. I don't understand Mike Sullivan's thinking there. It's not working. There's no chemistry. Jason Zucker, I'd be very surprised if he's with the Penguins next season. It might be hard to unload him just because of his salary, but the guy's just a very ordinary player. And given what they gave up for him and how much money he makes, that's a problem.
Yeah. What about Mike Sullivan? How safe do you think he is if they lose this series? I mean, gosh, this is a really bad stretch of playoff losses.
Yeah, it would be 4 straight playoff losses. And Joey, I know your Penguins history, and you know what happens when the team starts losing in the first round every year. They find a new coach.
Yeah.
Now, do I think he will be fired? If you put a gun to my head and asked, then I would appreciate you not doing that. But if you did, I would say no, I don't think he will be. And I think a lot of it is economic. The Penguins have hemorrhaged money the last year and a half. They still owe him, 3 years left on a contract that pays him, I think, around $4 million a year. They owe him that money regardless. Then you're bringing in a new coach making millions of dollars. I just don't know if they want to do that, but it's worth questioning. It's worth wondering about, because as successful as he has been, the playoff results since 2018 speak for themselves. So something is clearly wrong and clearly is not working. And I think we're seeing in the last couple of postseasons, his stubbornness is on display.
Yeah.
He won't make changes. And I appreciate the loyalty of the man. I appreciate that he dances with, who brought him. That's great. But how do you not make a change with your line figurations right now? How did you stick with Matt Murray for 3 games against Montreal when all of us at training camp could see Jarry was playing literally twice as well as Murray every single day? How do you leave Jack Johnson and Justin Schultz in the lineup for that entire Montreal series? And these are all valid questions and don't speak highly of some of Sullivan's decision-making, quite frankly.
It is so frustrating with him. It just seems like he just doesn't want to make adjustments. And then you have to consider we're assuming Burke and Hextall are going to want to be bigger and tougher and stuff. Is that really the kind of, the style that Sullivan wants to play? It seems like the kind of players that he wants, or the kind of players he has right now, the little quick guys, that could be a disaster.
Well, it was little quick guys who won him Stanley Cups in 16 and 17. So yeah, it all goes back to that loyalty. Those are his guys. That's the style he wants to play. I'll tell you a quick story. I was talking with Brian Burke a couple of months ago, and we were talking about Ryan Reeves. And I said, they really didn't handle that well when he was here. So they could use him right now. And Burke agreed with me basically. And he said, we're going to get tougher this summer. That's the way it is. And I said, Sully doesn't like playing that kind of hockey. He likes having his fast guys around. And Brian Burke responded to me by saying, and I quote, Sully and I are going to have a talk this summer. So that's all he said.
Uh-huh.
So that doesn't tell me Mike Sullivan's going to get fired. I don't think he will. It wouldn't shock me. I don't think he will. But there are going to be some philosophical changes because Ron Hextall and Brian Burke, number one, they like hockey played a certain way. Number two, they don't want to see Sid get beaten up anymore. They don't want to see Jake Gensel thrown around like a rag doll like he has been all series. And Mario Lemieux doesn't want that either, by the way. Like the Ryan Reeves thing, everyone thinks that was Jim Rutherford bringing in Reeves and Sullivan refused to play him. No, it wasn't. Mario Lemieux literally told Jim Rutherford to go get Ryan Reeves. That came from the big guy. So that's what Mario wants. He wants Crosby and Malkin protected, and he couldn't have enjoyed what he has seen really all the season, frankly. The Penguins are physically probably the softest team in the league. I don't think they're that soft mentally. Like, I think Jake Gensel's tough as hell for taking the beating that he takes at his size.
Yeah.
But they're still just a small team that doesn't hit back, and they're just an easy target for the Matt Martins and the Cal Clutterbucks and the Tom Wilsons of the world.
Maybe if the league would actually call some of the penalties and but that's the thing. It's not going to, the league has made it very clear what they want to have happen. And they love Tom Wilson almost killing people and this kind of, beating people up and stuff like that. So you have to respond and you have to get tough guys, but that's a thing about that Tom Wilson. Damn it. He's on that first line too. He's a good scorer. Ryan Reeves was just like a fourth line guy. He was just a goon, but damn, it's so tough.
Well, there's not a team in the league that wouldn't take Tom Wilson.
Oh yeah.
I mean, with open arms. The guy is a heck of a player. Yeah, it's exactly what the league wants, Joey. Look at how these games are being officiated. It's unbelievable. Florida and Tampa are like literally killing each other, and the refs are just standing there with their hands on their hips watching. Right. That's what they want. It's always what they've wanted. The evening stuff up. Like, you saw it last night. Should Mike Matheson be given a penalty for interference on that play in the third period? Probably.
Yeah.
They didn't call it. You got a guy hurt. So a couple of minutes later, Malkin gets absolutely molested in front of the net, gets hogtied, no penalty. And then 2 minutes later, Somebody gets tripped in the Penguin zone, penalty, got to make that makeup call. It's the same mindset. It never changes. I can assure you the Penguins are ballistic about it. I mean, in fact, I was told the other day that they have been in contact with the league during the series. Game 3 in particular really disgusted them with some of the things the Islanders got away with. And, when there's a scrum where Crosby's getting cross-checked in the back of the head and Brian Dumoulin's getting punched while he's face down on the ice, and the Penguins end up, shorthanded, they probably had a right to be pretty furious about that. It was just a bizarre scene. So it's never going to change. You know the expression, best game, worst league. I mean, that's what the NHL is, but they don't care. They don't see it that way. They have different ambitions. They want every game to go to overtime. They want to see their Leafs do well. Like, seriously, I mean, that's just the way the league is.
Yeah. I mean, don't yell at a tiger for being a tiger. I mean, it is what it is. But one more thing, Sorokin, is he really good and we're just learning about him, or is this just another like Halak situation where a goalie is just stealing a series?
No, he's really good. That's my opinion anyway. He had the reputation for a while as being one of those like best goalie not in the NHL, best goalie in the world not in the NHL guys. And you can see he's an athletic freak. I mean, he is really athletic. He's bigger than you think, and he's not rattled by the moment. That's for sure. He made a couple of saves in overtime. Man, there was one play. Crosby made a great pass to Letang, and he fired a shot top left corner. And from my vantage point in the press box, I thought it was in. And Sorokin got his blocker on it. His arms are unbelievable. He's got these long, lanky, athletic arms, and he just came out of nowhere to make that save. They just weren't going to beat him last night. Goalies always look a little better in Trotz's system because they block so many shots and don't really give up many grade A chances. But they did give up a lot of grade A's last night. They really did. And the Penguins just couldn't beat them. So, yeah, the Penguins have been the better team. Yeah, Jarry has been a mess. But the other team gets paid as well. And Sorokin, he might be one of the stories of these playoffs. I mean, I think this guy is really legit.
You keep hearing that Jarry is the third best goaltender in this series. It looks very much true. It is funny because, I mean, Varlamov is good too, but the Penguins just own him. Right. And I mean, it's almost as if Trotz was gifting the Penguins a couple wins by putting Varlamov in there, but now it's Sorokin to stay. So yeah, it is not looking good for the Penguins. No. One more thing. It is I believe the 30th anniversary of the Penguins' first Stanley Cup. I'll bet that was your first championship. I know it was my first championship. What do you remember? You were pretty young back then, weren't you?
I was 11.
Okay. That had to be exciting.
As a matter of fact, there's an article on The Athletic today that Stephen Nesbitt and I both wrote. He wrote an article about the scene at the airport when the Penguins won the Cup on May 25th, 1991. And he was working on it. And I told him, I said, if you need some background, Stephen, just so you know, 11-year-old Josh was there. He was like, what?
Oh, my God.
I said, oh, hell yeah, I was. I begged my mom, can we please go? Can we please go? I said, they're never going to win the Cup again. Like, come on, let me go. And my mom, with a couple of friends, decided to take me. And that was probably the most enjoyable night of my life. I saw public drunkenness on display at Pittsburgh International Airport like you've never seen before in your life. That night was so much fun, and that team was so much fun. It
was different because it was still, you had they've been around since 1967, had some success, but mostly not so great. Then Mario comes and still not such great success. But then, then they finally put it all together. And I think people just went crazy. I remember like seeing videos of that scene at the airport. It was like wall to wall people. People were like hanging from ceilings, and it was insane.
Yeah. I mean, the estimate was that 40,000 people were there. And I'll never forget it. I live about a half hour from the airport growing up, and it took us more than 2 hours to get there. and traffic was at a standstill on the
Oh
parkway.
man.
And there were just like, I mean, literally people just running up and down Interstate 79. I was hanging out of the sunroof, high-fiving everybody. I'll never forget it. We get to the airport, and I was 11, so it helped. I actually stood on top of a garbage can at the airport, and it allowed me to see everything, and I could see all the players getting. They got off the plane. I think it was at 3:30 a.m. It was a zoo like you've never seen, and I think Pittsburgh hadn't won a championship in 12 years. And Pittsburgh's pretty spoiled, so that was a long run. And the city fell in love with that team. I think just Mario was part of it, obviously, but I also just think that team was filled with so many lovable personalities, whether it be, Kevin Stevens or, 19-year-old Jaromir Jagr.
Trottier.
Trottier, Phil Bourque. The names. That was a team that Ulf Samuelsson, people just identified with that team. That was a team of alpha males, a team of incredible personalities. And that was when the city really fell in love with hockey in general. And with that team specifically. And that was a night I'll never forget. I think we got home like at 6 a.m. And that's probably the most fun night of my life, honestly. I've never seen anything like that. 40,000 people shutting down an airport for a hockey team. It was just an awesome experience.
Could you imagine you were on a flight? It's like, hey, this flight's delayed. The hockey team won a championship, and the airport's closed.
Well, no, that's the funny thing. It's one of my most vivid memories from that night. Back, for those who don't know, Pittsburgh's airport is not that busy anymore. It's kind of a ghost town. That's not because of COVID. It just is. It's a very nice airport, but it's not very big, not very busy compared to other airports. Well, back then it was a little different, and there were still people taking red eyes and getting in, the middle of the night. And I'll never forget, there was this older couple, like they looked like they were from Florida or so. I don't know where they were from. Like I could tell they weren't Pittsburghers, and they were walking with their suitcases, like looking at the crowd, and you could tell they were thinking, like, what the hell is going on here? I'll never forget it. I mean, I'm sure there were other people were kind of taken aback by what they were witnessing. And it's one of my favorite things about that. When the Penguins won the Cup in '92 in Chicago, they kept announcing over and over again, please do not come to the airport.
Yeah.
Please do not come to the airport. And then as they're interviewing players after the game, Bob Erie comes on. He's being interviewed by Mike Lang or someone. And Erie looks into the camera and he says, God damn it, I better see everybody at the airport in 2 hours. Attaboy, Bobby.
Oh. It was. I remember that day at '92 when they won. It's like the Penguins won the Stanley Cup. Lord Stanley, bring the brandy. Don't come to the airport. That was like the immediate.
Oh, don't come to the airport. Well, somebody got killed there in
right.
'91. Didn't he fall off a bus or something?
I think so. Yeah.
I think alcohol probably played a role. But I mean, that's part of why. But also, I mean, listen, it was an incredible scene. And if you've read my book that I wrote with Phil Bourque, he will tell you that he and his wife at the time were so, I'm sure they were drunk, but it wasn't just that. They were so overwhelmed by the scene that they literally started to just walk, and they ended up hitchhiking back to Upper St. Clair. They didn't even know where his car was. And it was just chaos everywhere. That was a scene that you had to be there to experience it. But there are a couple of YouTube links if you just do a search for Penguins Airport Stanley Cup. You will see it, and it was pretty insane.
It is amazing. All right, sir. Hey, thanks so much. Thanks for taking the time.
Joey, always a pleasure, my friend.
All right, I'll see you.
Good bud.